Hello again everybody and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're in the Fly UK Airbus A320neo today and we're making our way into Dubrovnik, Lima Delta Delta uniform for the airport code. And it's a really scenic approach, but it also has a tricky circle to land procedure that you can do for the westerly runway, runway 29. And we're going to take a look at that today with another tutorial with the fly-by-wire mod. So as you can see, we're blasting up and we're getting fairly close now, well into about 50 or so miles away. We need to start thinking about setting up for our arrival. So before we go much further, let's have a little look at the charts. You can see we're at 5,000 foot already. So we're passing Nera soon at about 20 nautical miles, and we'll be flying for 5,000 foot down towards this Colosep KLP NDB, and then we're going to effectively be flying an ILS approach for runway 11. So we've configured for that, and make note of this 115.4 VOR frequency. Using Navigraph as well today if you're not sure what this is. So onto the approach tab, we're looking at the ILS or lock runway 11, and that's what that looks like. So final approach course of 114 degrees. There's our ILS frequency of 110.1 at the top, and it's also here on the charts too. And there's a Cavtat NDB 397, that's going to go into our ADF1. Dubrovnik VOR of 115.4, that's going to go into our VOR 1 and 2 frequencies for today. There's a little bit of the approach plates there for what to expect if we were going to be flying the ILS runway 11. But Cavtat CV Charlie Victor is the one we need to be looking out for. If we go back to the approach tab and scroll down on Navigraph, there's a circling runway 29 chart, which is great. And that's what we're going to be doing today, folks. So at Cavtat, we're going to come off the ILS, we're going to break off a heading of 157 degrees, and we're going to keep flying that for 3.5 nautical miles until we reach a radial of 227 degrees from this Dubrovnik VOR here. We're then going to turn a track of 114 degrees and fly for 3.3 miles until we reach a radial of 157 degrees from the Dubrovnik VOR, and then we're going to commit to a left base turn to make our way round to the Garuda NDB. We'll be lining up for our short finals visual approach. There's our missed approach data here too, and as we're flying the ILS or lock approach, and we're a category C aircraft today, we've got a max speed of 180 knots and an MDA of 2,170 foot with a runway visual range of 2,400 metres. So 2,170 is going to be our MDA. We're going to allow ourselves to drop down to 2,200 foot, so no less than that really. So let's go ahead and put all of these 3 frequencies here into the aircraft. For that, you want to go to your flight plan page and make sure you've configured for your ILS LDDU 11. Selecting it there and selecting the Nera 8 Alpha arrival and committing that to your MCDU. In the future, we're going to be able to select a lateral revision at the runway, so we'll be able to go to LDDU. We'll be able to put in here a lateral revision with some fixed data. So we'll be able to then go in and basically draw a 5 nautical mile radius circle into the flight plan to sort of give us a little bit of a visual cue of the outer limits of this visual circuit, if you like. But heading into the RadNav page, we've got the ILS frequency of 110.1 put in. I've got that Dubrovnik VOR of 115.4, and I've put it into VOR 1 and 2 today, just because we're going to be using both of these NDBs, and we might want to switch between one or the other quite quickly to help us. And by setting the VOR on both, we're going to be able to make use of it in both settings. We've got the Charlie Victor NDB that we're going to break off to do this VPT once we touch, and we've got that Garuda NDB as well, which is going to be our indication of our very short finals. Into the performance page then, we've gone ahead and put in our current live weather and our MDA there from the charts of 2,170 feet that we can't drop below for the purpose of the procedure. and the transition altitude as it's published on the charts at 10,000 foot. Although if you're on VATSIM or IVAO or you've got ATC, there might be an indication of a different transition altitude from the tower, and just use that if that's the case. So we're all pretty much ready to go. We can go ahead and turn ADF1 on, VOR 2 on. And as we're getting fairly close, we can start to think about arming the ILS modes as well. So you can either arm lock mode and allow it to just fly the localizer and control the approach using Track FPA, getting that flight path angle. In which case, for the ILS, for runway 11, you want a glide path angle of 3 degrees. So we could use that as a method, or we can click approach mode, although as we get closer to Charlie Victor we need to start moving it across to different settings so that it doesn't start to punch below our MDA. And then we're going to get this visual circuit all ready to go. If you haven't done so already, do check out all my other tutorials of loads of other tricky approaches into different parts of the world, and if you guys give this a go, let me know how you get on in the comments down below as well. Now we know from looking at the charts for the arrival procedure, and we base that upon the ILS, we need to intercept the glide slope at or below 4,000 foot. And that's near that Colisept VOR, Colisept NDB, which is kind of where A first is. So we go ahead and start our initial approach to intercept the ILS. And at this point we could go ahead and go flaps 1. The first couple of times you guys do this, I really recommend setting up the aircraft fairly early. Well, not too early of course, but early enough to give you guys time to slow the aeroplane down, allow it to stabilise and start to fly this procedure yourself. We've got the QNH up here of 1004, and we've got it set in the standby instruments too. And we're coming down to our descent nicely there too, down to 4,000. Really scenic part of the world, great approach. Runway length, we've got 3,230 metres. So we can make use of low water brake, and we can set the ground spoilers to arm. Make sure the lights are as required and the seat belts as well. 110.1 is in the right nav, isn't it? Yeah, 110.1, good. Don't forget for this as well, we're going to make use of Track FPA. And that's going to come in really handy as well for our approach. Let's change that to hundreds. 2170, so we want 2,200. So what I might do is get that ready. Don't have to select it just yet. And we're going to arm Track FPA mode so we get the bird in there. And obviously that's showing us currently flying straight and level, which is good. We've got 24 miles to go. So about 10, 12 miles we'll start to commit to our descent. So when you guys are doing this, make sure that you try and aim for a bit of a continuous descent. So around about this stage now, about 17 miles away, you'd be at around about 4,000 foot. So you're just starting to position underneath the glide slope. I've obviously come in low for the purpose of the example today, just so I can explain more of the procedure than anything else. But the descent stuff would just be as we would do normally. Let's go ahead and arm the ILS mode. You can see the magenta line moving in now, so we're starting to look at intercepting that. So let's arm it. And we're going to keep flying straight and level until that glide slope needle starts to move in. And all we're going to do, as you can see there, we're going to get ready for a 3 degree. And once that glide slope almost touches there, we're going to go ahead and select that 3 degree flight path angle for our final approach. Flaps 2. Speed is going to be key here, so we go flaps 2 before we start to actually commit to our descent. It's going to help bring the speed of the aeroplane right down towards our approach speeds. There's great scenery on the way in. So just about to touch the glide slope. We're not in approach mode, remember, for this. And there's the glide slope, so let's go ahead and arm that, descent, and then we arm the flight path angle down to 3, and we start to make our way in. So we've got 10 miles to go now. We'll be able to go gear down in a second as well. Great views. And we're back to the flight deck for today. 9 miles, gear down. And the Cavtap VOR is 3.4 miles from the Dubrovnik VOR. So if you're looking at VOR 2 there, we'll use that as a marker. Just before that reaches 3.4, so around about 4 DME, we're going to start to do that break-off turn. And you can see with our 3 degree glide path angle, we're just above the glide slope, and it's giving us a nice rate of descent there. Flaps 3. Let's come off track mode, lock mode, sorry, and we'll go ahead and just select track of 115. Coming up to our MDA. And we're looking on the nav display for pretty much 4 DME. And then breaking off on a track of 157. Let's go on to VOR mode. 6 miles from the Dubrovnik VOR now. And you can see how we've lost that glide slope, but around about 1,000 foot above the runway. I'm going to switch the VOR across so that now VOR 1 becomes Dubrovnik, VOR 2 is Gruda, which is over the other side of the runway. 4.9 nautical miles. And CV is basically just down here. So we're pretty much just about to hit it. We're at 4 miles now, as you can see. Turning. 157. So breaking off on a track of 157, and it's a track so that the wind on the day doesn't affect, it doesn't make us drift too far away from the airfield. That'd naturally be a bad thing, but you can see how close we get during this procedure. to the airport itself. And we're now going to fly until the white arrow, the back of the white arrow, reaches 227, so kind of here where the cursor is now. Once the back of this white arrow touches that, we're then going to fly our downwind leg with the track of 114 degrees to come up the other side of the airport. Once we're on that downwind leg as well, we'll configure full flaps. Can't do this procedure at night either, according to the charts, and you need to make sure you look at the charts for the runway visual range. If it's a really bad weather day, you might need to opt for the slightly alternative routes like an RNAV approach for this. So we're looking at a radial of 227, which is kind of just coming up now. Turning 114. Now we're going to fly our downwind leg for just 3.3 miles until we're then at a radial of 157. So the back end of this white arrow touches pretty much where the cursor is now, 157 degrees. And that's going to tell us that we need to turn on our final base leg. And at that point we'll go manual control and start to fly in. Let's go full flaps. We've got that cabin ready on the ECAM. We should get landing mode very shortly as well. You can obviously see as well lots of terrain to bear in mind. The base leg for the Gruder as well, this is why it's good to have the ADF2 on with Gruder. It's pretty much when that's in a straight line, kind of now. So, manual control. And it was a radial of 157, which is just about to come about now. And starting our base turn for final approach. Let's just get the nose down slightly just so we can start descending, and we're going to want, as usual, around about 800 or so foot per minute. There's our minimums, but we are well visual with the airport, so we're going to have to sort of juggle the aeroplane in the sim and try and look at everything as we're doing it. Bear in mind as well, wind and things can drift us across towards the mountainous terrain, so we need to be really careful of that. And this one you don't need much of a turn. 15 degrees, no more than that, just a nice continual turn on the way round. We're maintaining about 900 foot per minute descent currently. Might be a little low. We've got 2 red, there we go, so that's looking pretty good. Trying to hold 800 foot per minute. Slightly low, so let's just bring that nose up a little bit. Let's just reset our view as well, so we got our final approach. And you can see how smooth this rate of turn has been compared to steeper ones like Innsbruck, where you're battling against the terrain and things as well. 15 degrees is a nice rate of turn for this, and if you come in tighter and you're noticing you're coming in a bit tight, you can just ease off on the rate of turn. Whereas if you come in wide, you're then having to battle it. You're going to have to increase your rate of your bank angle to try and combat not drifting off too much to the runway and then ending up having to do a missed approach. So we go 2 red, 2 white, and on our final approach now. down. Let's get rid of the speed brakes and slow down to come off the runway at a fairly nice speed. Off we go. So let's fire up the APU, get the landing lights off, and the strobes as well. That's where the sim's wanting me to go to park. So we'll head there. And there we go. Hope you guys have enjoyed the short tutorial flying into Dubrovnik with the VPT circle to land procedure here. Be sure to check out all my other videos on the channel as well, and if you guys give this a go, let me know how you get on in the comments below. As always, if you are new, then please consider clicking that subscribe button as well. But thank you all for watching, and I'll see you very soon for a live stream in the very near future.